Soon gonna marry a man like no other. Light the fuse. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Love is a warmest color, petrol blues. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Comes so long to be in my youth, the greatest tide washed up my pride.
Anaximenes is grouped together with Thales and Anaximenes, all monists in the sense they believed the origin of both humans and the universe was a single thing. All of these philosophers were from Miletus. It was a small enough city-state that it was likely the three knew each other and had shared their ideas, as well as wealthy enough to have a literature and leisure class. Though small, it had trade routes linked to Babylon, Egypt, Lydia, and Phoenicia, the importance stressed here being that ideas traveled with trade.
Three shared a primitive form of the reductionist spirit. They wanted to make the world comprehensible, but doing so meant limiting the number and nature of things used to explain phenomena, as well relying on familiar features of the world, as Thales did with water. Most importantly, they introduced the idea of cosmic order and natural law. The approach used to make the world comprehensible was to explain things by looking at their origins. More often than not in a biological sense. The world rose out of a form of matter that had properties of life and growth.
Anaximenes deconstructed and explained his reality by a single origin, air. Earth was formed by felting process. He often references this process that was used when wool is compressed to make felt. He theorized Earth began as a flat disk. Earth floats on air, and the sun and the moon were flat bodies that floated on streams of air. In one account, Anaximenes claims that stars are fixed to the heavens like nails. In another, the stars are fiery leaves floating on the air. He made the observation that the sun traveled around the earth rather than traveling underneath, and was hidden behind high parts of the earth when it was night. Because Anaximenes was a monist at heart, he had the theory-driven idea that the laws operate on a fixed ratio. Laws on the small scale, the human body, also work on the large scale of the universe.
So just as he had theories of how the earth was created and where the sun went at night, he had theories of how objects existed. Air was the origin, but there was a limited number of things it could turn into, and it was left to a second order of matter to make everything else. Fire turned into air turned into wind turned into cloud turned into water turned into earth, and earth turned into rock. Ultimately, he uses principles to account for natural phenomena. Again, we have to remind ourselves he wanted a comprehensive explanation for the whole universe. He provided empirical support by appeal to a single experiment. Hot air came from the relaxed mouth, and cold air came from pursed lips. Therefore, he came to the theory that air, being the origin, was changed into other matter by rarefaction and condensation.
Although in the end he really couldn't give scientific reason for changes, it is important to note that he was one of the first recorded thinkers to provide a theory of change and support it with observation.
Other notable theories of this include observations of natural events. Lightning and thunder occurred because the winds break from the clouds. Rainbows are rays of sun falling onto the clouds. Earthquakes were caused by cracking earth when it dried out. Again, all back to the origin of air changing into other matter. Anaximenes as well gave air divine attributes. Early Greek literature associates air with the soul, the breath of life. And according to the Dioscorides collection of pre-Socratic sources, Anaximenes thought air was capable of directing its own development, as the soul controls the body. His idea was that humans were given life by air because the soul controls the body. Ultimately, humans were animated and ensouled by air. Again, leading for him to suggest it does the same for the universe, referring back to his theory that humans and the universe worked on a similar scale.
Our sources of knowledge are slightly limited. We had Theophrastus, who wrote it was likely Anaximenes was a student of Anaximander. The collection of pre-Socratic sources, assembled by Hermann Alexander Diels and Walther Kranz, aided in multiple findings: how air was associated with the soul, how Anaximenes thought air was capable of directing its own development like the soul controls the body, how Anaximenes supported his theory with his experiments, and his theories on the origins of the cosmos. We also have Aristotle, whom of which we were warned by nearly every source to take with a grain of salt. His translation of Anaximenes' theories is as follows. There is only one substance, air. The other stuff, wind, cloud, water, etc., are only modifications of the real substance. There's no independent evidence to support this interpretation. It also required Aristotle's metaphysical concepts of form and matter, which were too advanced for Anaximenes' time period. It was more likely he said the stuff changed into one another in order. Anaximenes died in 528 BCE, so his influence may not be apparent today, but he did influence those philosophers who followed after him. His theory of change of matter by rarefaction and condensation was developed by Heraclitus and criticized by Parmenides. Anaxagoras adopted his general theory of how materials of the world first came to be, and it was thought it provided a common-sense explanation of change by Melissus and Plato. Diogenes of Apollonia makes air the basis of his explicitly monist theory. Air was also used as a central concept in the theory of diseases. So it's easy to see the influence he had on philosophers following immediately after him, and those philosophers influenced the ones that followed them, and so on. What's important for us to know today is that he provided a cosmos account with theory of change, which separated his theories from the realm of speculation and made them, in conception, scientific theories capable of being tested. Because of his reliance on logos rather than mythos, it helped lay the foundation of philosophy by explaining reality in the world by abstract argumentation, rather than relying on the gods and mythological stories.